So today is June 18th, 2021. My name is Maria Saldana, and I'm here with Nat Castle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start by telling me when and where you were born?
I was born in New Jersey in 1982.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
Small town, suburbs, the same town where I was born, actually.
Mm-hmm. And do you mind sharing what town that was?
Pequannock, New Jersey.
Pequannock? Okay.
No, Pequannock. It's actually a Native American name.
Nice. Okay.
Nobody knows where it is ever, even in Jersey. So it's just yeah. But it's basically, if I had to characterize it, even to this day, it's white suburbia.
Okay. Okay, so Pequannock, New Jersey. And where is your family from?
Barranca, which is 3.5 hours north of Lima, capital.
Yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with Barranca. I have a few friends that are actually from there.
Really? Wow. Yeah. My whole family's from there. They're still there to the some are here now, but I still have a lot of family left there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So would you share a little bit about your relationship to your Peruvian identity?
Well, what do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
So how you perhaps like how you've come to understand your Peruvian identity, what your Peruvian identity has come to mean to you, anything along those lines.
Sure. Well, it means everything to me because it's essentially everything that I am. I'm 100% Peruvian, both sides. Parents are from the same small town. My closeness with it, I would say, would be characterized as when I was younger, I wasn't aware I was being raised in a Peruvian household. And it was very different because in school, I knew I was different. I just didn't understand why. And that's aside from my actual appearance. But I ate Peruvian food my whole life. I remember my mom helping. My aunt has a restaurant here in New Jersey, Peruvian, us helping her out with the business. I remember going to do things in Paterson, New Jersey, which, if you're familiar, it's a very big Peruvian population. So I remember going, to Paterson with my dad to pick up pollo a la brasa on some weekends. But it was confusing at the same time because, as I said before, I did grow up in white suburbia. So I was like, okay, this is very different. And Paterson always having been a city, at least since I have memory. So it was like, okay, this is something, but I wasn't, it didn't make sense until later on in life. So, and my parents were, I guess you could say, forbidden to speak to me in Spanish by my teachers in school. They actually told them straight out, she'll never use that language. Don't teach her that. Because I guess in preschool, I was getting confused. I was too young to differentiate the languages. So I was getting confused when someone would talk to me in English. I'd talk to them back in Spanish, and they decided to eliminate that portion of me, which I regained anyway. Eventually, later on in life, I regained it, thankfully. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a big question, but I hope that answers some of it.
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you for sharing all of that, because I think as you were speaking, and even you mentioning your parents being told that they couldn't speak to you in Spanish, that's something that they told my mom also when I was in kindergarten. And that's such a that's such a real occurrence that happens, you know, I think with
Hmm.
people that speak a language other than English, especially when they're raising their kids and then they go to school in a school that predominantly speaks English, right? I think that that's a common occurrence.
It is.
And then also I heard you mention, you know, that you grew up Peruvian, but it's not like it was something that you knew like right away.
Yeah.
It was something that you saw after you started comparing, you know, these occurrences, like going to Patterson, helping your tia, your aunt with her restaurant, and then you were comparing that to the area that you were at, right? Which is
Yeah.
this white suburbia, as you described. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's also real. What was that? What was the experience like when you started to understand those differences? What came up for you? Do you remember?
Uh, well, I would say knowing the differences was brought to my attention in an aggressive manner by the white community, white European descent community. Um, and I guess I want to kind of differentiate that from now. This way I don't have to constantly repeat myself. When I refer to white, I don't refer to like more of a skin color. I refer more to the Anglo European descent um, peoples. Um, so clearly, you and I are very light. So I'm not referring to us in terms of skin or complexion. I'm referring to that as the white community. So, how was I aware? I mean, I've been made aware, but I didn't understand why it was being such a distinction. You know, so when I would go to school, for example, you know, in my house there was no such thing as peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There is no such thing as pretzels and chips and just none of those things. We don't eat those things, right? Um, even that, even the most minimal of things, my food was critiqued. Um, you know, I didn't like their snacks. I think the first time I had a pretzel, I actually vomited. It was so gross to me. And now I can actually eat like a real pretzel. But um, I just didn't have a taste for any of those things. I didn't know what fast food was when these kids would celebrate getting McDonald's. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I wasn't even allowed near it. My first sandwich from McDonald's was when I was 20. So, and that was a friend that put me onto it. It was, and after you're drunk, really. Um, but that's not something I would eat for nourishment. It's not something that I see as food. So even that, um, you know, I don't know if it's distinctions that I was ever going to be aware of just on my own, save for the fact that the white community made me aware of it. Why are my eyes the shape they are? Why is my food that way? Or why is my lunchbox different? Um, you know, so yeah, I don't think it was like I came into a more realization on my own rather than being forced constantly to know that I'm different. Um, but also kind of, you know, uh, hmm. At some point, they pointed it out less in, let's say, in school, but you know, obviously it comes back to me. I can remember it clearly. Um, and then with everything else going on in the world today, you understand, like, that's why this happened to me. That's why that happened to me. And then otherwise, I mean, even my aunt back in 1996 was the first time I went back to Peru. And by back, I mean, I had been there my first year of my life, but I don't recall any of that. I lived in Talara, all the way in the north. Then I came back to the US and lived from, let's say, 1 to about 13, never having been back to Peru. And in 96, under, I guess, when Fujimori was president, that's when I finally went back with my aunt to visit, and I spent a month there. And that made me more aware too, even though we weren't where we're from. We were in Lima, in an apartment that my aunt had in San Juan de Lurigancho. It really made me, I was like, oh, first of all, I see people that look like me, that look like my parents, that look like my family. And even though I wasn't in the best of places, it still felt like home. And even though it's not even where I'm from, being there felt like home. And that would begin my strong love affair and awareness that I'm in one country, but what speaks to me is another country. What speaks to my soul, what heals my soul has always been there. And I've noticed that even later on in life, when like I dropped out of college and whatnot, and I had like a whole, like, I guess you could call it like a sabbatical in Peru. Just took off, and I was there for about a year when I was about 20, 21. And I was able to find myself and regroup. But I can say even to this day, there is no goal greater in my life than to return. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
So
that's perfect. That's such a rich answer. And you named so many things, but one of them is the awareness that you gained of your, Peruvian identity came from like other people's perceptions, right? And it was mainly these white, Anglo folks. And also, like thinking about notions of whiteness itself, right? It's different. It's different when you think of the ways that like cultural markers, like you were saying, right? You like didn't even eat McDonald's, you didn't eat pretzels, like all of these things that become an American like cultural marker, right? Is not what you grew up with. And I think that it points to differences, like even in the ways that we think of race is going to be different, I think, in Peru and in the US. And so, I'm grateful that you named that and that you distinguished what you mean when you say white. And also, I felt a similarity in hearing your story when you said that you went back to Peru, you said in like 96, right? And you felt so at home there despite not having grown up there, right? You saw people that looked like you were familiar with the food, and there was something that spoke to you there, even though you grew up somewhere else. So in that sense, I feel similar to you. So I was born in Peru. I came to the US when I was almost 3. And I still say that my home is Peru. Like it still feels more home to me. And so thank you so much for sharing. And it makes me, I don't want to assume, so I want to ask if
sure.
it's meaningful for you to have a relationship to Peru and to your Peruvian identity.
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
Is it meaningful for you to have a relationship to Peru or your Peruvian identity?
Absolutely. 100%. And because, so maybe I wasn't so aware of it growing up, like there's a distinction other than the fact that I'm not American I'm not American enough for the Americans. And I will say that my mom, I guess, took heed to, she's like, well, we're in their country. We're going to do what they want. My father always reminded me, even as a kid, he's like, listen, this American nonsense that, you're born here. And I'm talking what he used to tell me. I'm not saying that being an American is nonsense at all. I don't want to, but this is what he said to me. This American, business and nonsense, you're not American. You'll always be Peruvian, no matter what. You being born here does not take away from you being Peruvian. And so I did grow up with at least that, but I didn't understand what that meant until I went to Peru. Like, we're talking about some place I've never, or I had been, but I didn't remember being. And then I didn't go back until I was 13. And then every summer vacation, it was always, where do you want to go? Peru. I never chose anywhere else. I had options to go other places. I said, no, I'd rather go to Peru. So summer break, spring break, you name it, Christmas break, all of them, I went to Peru. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the question? I'm trying to tie that in.
You're okay. Is it meaningful for you to have a relationship to Peru or your Peruvian identity?
Yes, because otherwise I'd have no culture, I feel like. Where would I identify with? I'm not, like I said, I'm not American enough for the Americans. I in prior employment is something that you'd characterize as serving this country. And I'm still not American enough. So, and then that distinction wasn't made by me. It was made known to me. So, yeah. And I'm okay with it. I'm at peace with it in the sense that, like, okay, the people that have made that distinction, it's like, in my book, they're shitty. I don't mean to curse, but they're a horrible person to do that. But at the end of the day, all right, maybe you're right. And I actually don't. My background didn't start on the Nina Pinta in Santa Maria just because I was born here. My background will always start in Peru. And it's important to have a sense of self and a sense of pride. And that's no matter where you're from. But Peru, with so much richness, I couldn't have asked for a better place to have been from, or to have descended from, I guess. Without knocking any other places, because there's many other beautiful places. My fiance is actually Puerto Rican, and she's not from like the capital area. She's from like actual campo area, and I think it's beautiful. And I was just there, but I've been there 4 times, but it wasn't as shown to me as home as it was now. And there's actually a lot of similarities that I love and I appreciate about Puerto Rico. So I'm not, just as another example, like, yeah, there's other places that I find are very rich in culture, very beautiful. But I feel fortunate to be Peruvian. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful that, it sounds like you seem very resolved in and you named it at peace with the fact that, you're from Peru at the end of the day, that you may not fit into this notion of America or Americanness. And you're okay with that, right? Because I can see that you have such a love for Peru and where you're from, and that's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you maintain your relationship with Peru or with your Peruvian identity?
Well, 1, by going there every chance I get. 2, I keep in touch with my family there, family and friends. And in here, I mean, I try to actively participate in any community things. And my aunt's pretty big in the community as well, because she's had a restaurant since, I guess since the 80s. I don't know, since I remember. And you know, so I've gone to festivals and you know, fallen asleep on the speakers while my mom helps her out. You know, she used to have live performers come in at her restaurant, and you know, it was music that back then I didn't know how to appreciate, but now I literally get goosebumps when I'll listen to it in my car. And if I have to go somewhere, if I want to relax, or if I want to space out, the best way for me to do that is actually with la música criolla. It grounds me in a way that I feel good about myself, even though I wasn't born in Peru, I wasn't raised in Peru. And as a child, I was like, what is this music even saying? You know, and I didn't like it back then. And now it's just like, you cannot, if there's one thing you can't take away from me in this world, it is that. So, and I have like a profound love of music in general too. I really there's only two genres that I can't listen to. And one is country and two is metal. Anything else in between I can listen to, even gospel, doesn't matter to me. So, yeah. Yeah, I hope I answered that.
Yeah, you did. And, you know, there's so many ways, right? I think that especially for Peruvians that live in the diaspora, that live outside of Peru, there are ways that, you know, if we choose to, if that's something that feels in alignment with us, that there are ways that we can maintain our identity. Music is definitely one way, right? The food, and I think it's really amazing that your aunt has been such a it sounds like such a focal point in like helping you
yeah,
your identity.
but she's the one I went with to Peru in '96, so she took me. And yeah, so you know, even going to her place was like walking into a Peruvian safe place, you know, like it's a safe haven for us to be. You know, and then the food is delicious. So yeah, I mean, to this day, whether I go to my aunt's or if I go to another Peruvian place, but I can tell you this, when I have a bad day, for whatever reason, my soul is easily cured with some Peruvian music and some Peruvian food. I just feel better because it feels like I'm at home. I don't know. In fact, another place that I go to a lot is in New York City, Mission Ceviche. And I know the chef personally as well. And, you know, he, anytime he sees me, he says, welcome home, you know? And it's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, this is, you know, when I come to have Peruvian food, I feel good. It resets my soul. Yeah.
What was the restaurant that you said is in New York City?
Oh, Mission Ceviche.
Mission Ceviche?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he started out in, and it's so funny. He started out in the Gansevoort Market. Mm-hmm. And the Gansevoort Market, when you walk in, you know, it's like an open air market with like different food kiosks and whatnot. I'm like, it's kind of weird because it's like the Americans like this concept, but this is like going into el mercado in Peru, you know? Like, sitting on a little stool and I'm having ceviche right then and there. And I'm like, okay, I know what this is like. And that's where he started. Now he's got an actual brick and mortar store, restaurant on the Upper East Side. And I'm very happy for him. He's doing very well. You know, even despite COVID. So yeah, you know, like I said, it's nice to see a lot of younger Peruvians doing things like this to put us on the map, to put us out there, not just out there, but also favorably. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's Brooklyn Warming with the jewelry, and I think her makeup line is coming out, and it's so important for her to say, you know, you deserve to feel seen and honor your features. You know, or if it's food like Jose Luis at Mission Ceviche, where he's presenting it to, yes, this is our treasures, but we're willing to share it with the world, you know. And obviously Gaston Acurio was the initiator of that, but you have people that have just picked up, I guess, the torch, you could say, and gone forward with it, you know. And even this, that's why I said this, even this interview, I was like, oh yeah, you know, any way I can collaborate, it's important to do so, you know, because you're doing an important, at least in, you know, I think for all of us at the very least at the Peruvian community, that is important to talk about these things, you know, and recognize it as a huge topic, you know, us that weren't able to live in Peru during those times, or because our parents, you know, the insecurity at the moment, you know, and it was a choice of live where you're not wanted or live where you not sure if you can exist. So I mean, that's a rock and a hard place as far as I'm concerned. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked about the restaurant because I'm trying to be in New York at the end of July. So
try it. Yeah.
I'm trying to like hit up all the Peruvian places. I'm trying to see, you know, all of my Peruvian friends that I organize with, that I've gotten to meet online, safely, of course, you know. But yeah, I think Peru has really been like such like at the forefront of my mind. And like when I talk to other Peruvians, it has been, right, the elections, the coup, and just I think just recently so many people are just willing to talk about what it means for them to be Peruvian. And so I'm really grateful that, you know, you took the time to share your story with me, because, you know, a part of why I'm archiving the interviews that I'm doing is because, you know, I'm living in the diaspora and I didn't see very many Peruvians besides my family. And I also grew up, you know, like I was seeing a lot other Latinx people, but I wasn't seeing Peruvians, or people would think that I was Cuban, or, you know, it's just my Peruvian identity was always fed to me. Same thing. My parents always said, you know, you're Peruvian above everything else. But I didn't see us out there. And then, you know, like adding my queerness to it, I was like, well, I don't see us, you know, I don't see queer Peruvians. I don't see us represented a lot in the media. And in my studies as well, you know, I was told that I would find anything I needed through the university. And I was like, okay, but where are we? You know, we weren't there.
Sure.
So that's a big part of why I'm doing this work. And so I'm going to shift a little bit into talking about queerness, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
And my question is, can you talk to me about your queer identity a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I guess at this point in my life, I identify as lesbian. Although, had I been born maybe in a later time, I think I probably would have been more comfortable with being trans. I've actually never felt comfortable being a woman. So I don't really personally identify. Outwardly, you know, although it was very close, you know, and I'm still relatively, I guess you could say, young. In the time when I came out, it was still the end of all we wanted as queer, gay community was just to be left alone to do what we want to do with our personal sexual preference. Now, and this is something that I speak to my fiance a lot about, that we have conversations back and forth about, because she's younger. She's 27. I'll be 39 in August. Mm-hmm. So now that there is this, what's it called? Awareness for people's labels and pronouns and how they identify. I think it's great, although I didn't understand it at first. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't understand that. I was like, really? Do we care? This is what my thought process before. Do we really care about that? Because like some people still don't want us sleeping with who we want to sleep with. Like, why do we have to care about these things? And my fiance identifies as pansexual. And so at first I was kind of like, what the hell is that? Like, I didn't know what it was. I really didn't. And she just explained it to me. And in all honesty, at first I was like, oh, so you're bi. Like, okay. And I've gotten more and more to the realization I understand where the younger generation of queer, the queer community is coming from. Although I'm from the older generation, I think that has played an impact on how comfortable I was to do anything. And again, my parents are 30 and 35 years older than me. So they weren't young parents when they had me. It wasn't customary at the time when I was born to be that old of a parent to begin with. And yeah, so I mean, I have some things where I guess you would call it like I was raised traditional, Roman Catholic, as are many Peruvians. And the religion plays a lot, although my father is not religious at all. My mother's very religious. And I'm not religious. But I would say that all those little factors or details of my life played a big role in where I am as in terms of coming out. And I think, I don't want to say it's too late because obviously it's never too late. But in my view, for me, I'm not going to go about telling my parents, well, now I'm your son. Not to detract anyone who has the courage to do that. And not that, I don't know if they would not accept me because they accept me as I am now. And really that wasn't a hard process. And I apologize if that's probably a follow-up question, how my family took it, but no, my family takes it fine. My whole family knows. And to my knowledge, I haven't lost any support from anyone because of it. So, and particularly not my parents. So, I guess it's not really because of them. Maybe it's just my own reservations, and having grown up in white suburbia, they particularly don't like that. So, if you're already ostracized for being different from them, it's just like an added, because I've seen them ostracize their own for being queer and anything within that term. So it's like, you know what, we already have a problem. And when you're young, it's not nice to have those problems. So I was like, we already have that problem. I'm not going to add to it. I'm not going to make myself stand out even more. So, but having talked to, particularly, I have a very close friend who has one of his kids is trans, and really having talked to him about that a lot, really opened up my eyes even more about, oh shit, maybe I'm actually trans, but that's, you know what, I'm okay where I'm at. I'm okay at this speed. It's a little bit of a lengthy answer, but in short, yes, I guess I identify as lesbian, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. And it's okay if the answers are lengthy. Like this is your interview, this is your story. Feel free to share, what resonates with you in the moment. And also, I want to say that I think that if you feel, you know, like you are living your most authentic life, you feel your most authentic self right now, you know, I think that there shouldn't be, I should say, pressure to have a label, come out, you know, figure that out, because, you know, as you're speaking, you're also naming very real differences in terms of generations, right? Like, you know, you naming that you belong to, you know, one generation of queerness, and, you know, other folks nowadays, you know, are navigating queerness in a different way. And all are valid, right? So I think that it's okay, and like I think people often assume that coming out or queerness in general looks like a very linear thing. You know, you come out once and that's it, or you can only identify as one way, and once you identify it, you know, but that's not true. And I think that our journeys with queerness are going to shift. They're definitely not linear, you know, and so I'm grateful for your honesty and your response, because it's important. It's important to name, and someone else hearing, you know, might feel, might resonate to you, or might feel affirmed, you know, and all are valid in our journeys towards queerness, you know. And so my follow-up question is, what does queerness mean to you?
So I understand it to be the gay community. Realizing that I could be wrong, because again, going back to the answer before with the labels, I wasn't concerned with that. Just please let me love who I want to love. So, you know, and I might be derelict in duty in the sense of not educating myself more about the gay community. You know, so yeah, I, you know, if there's a better definition or more complete definition, I'm not aware of it, but I respect, you know, like, especially having my fiance is pan, you know, I respect where they're coming from, because that's what makes them happy. And if my goal was just to be happy as well, why would you can't, you know, you can't put out anyone's light either, or anyone's light to their pathway. So yeah, I you know, with labels and stuff like that, I'm not too savvy. I'll admit I'm probably like a dinosaur in that aspect. So,
Yeah, so you mentioned, you know, thinking of queerness in terms of like the queer community. What does the queer community mean for you, or what does that look like for you?
again, the gay community, you know, I don't have a ton of gay friends. And you would think, like, you know, especially, maybe that's what got me so comfortable. And I'm just kind of realizing something, just talking about this. Maybe that's why I'm so comfortable with just being in my own space. You know, I'm the type of person, I can do anything by myself, eat by myself, go out, take myself out on my own date. I'm very comfortable with that, because I'd rather not be bothered, you know, and I feel like that's all I ever had been in you know, having grown up where I grew up, and going to school where I went to school. It's all I was like constant state of like, how am I going to get out of this state of being bothered and just being scrutinized? So I don't really have a lot of gay friends. I know I have some gay acquaintances, but friends, not many. So I don't do a lot of gay, like, I've definitely done Peruvian functions a lot more than I've ever done gay functions. As well as, like I said before, my mom did subscribe to this, you know, okay, better life thing. And I get that. I 100% respect it, and 100% I'm grateful for it. for all her efforts and hard work, and staying so focused on that. But I didn't have a lot of Peruvian friends either. So my whole life has always been like throwing me into this whiteness, straight whiteness at that. And I'm just like, I don't even fucking fit here. But not also not knowing where to go to see anything else other than my own family. And at first I would say, and I, you know, this is admittedly so, that I was apprehensive about even hanging out with other Peruvians, because the way my mother almost took a distaste for Peru for some years of her life, which included my youth, had rubbed off on me. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not like that Peruvian, and I'm not like this Peruvian. I'm like, you know, and I didn't speak even the language for a while. You know, and to even see another Peruvian, I had to go to Patterson, but I don't know, you know, they would have run like anybody in Patterson could probably run circles around me. I'm from the suburbs, you know, and it's just like, oh, well, that's dangerous for you. And I get that there's some truth to that. You know, because I'm a country mouse versus a city mouse, you know, like it's the tale of two cities. So, you know, some of it's almost been self-exclusionary, whether it be the Peruvian community or the gay community. And, you know, I try now, I'm like, all right, well, now I have enough sense to myself to know when someone's just no good, whether they're gay, whether they're Peruvian, whether they're Black, whether they're white, you know, I have enough sense to myself, I think, to know when they're just no good for me as a person, you know, when the vibe is off. So, but yeah, so the gay community, I'm not big on, you know, I don't run to the gay community for like anything really. Like I would love to, I just don't know where to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, at least Peruvian, I know where I'm gonna go.
Absolutely.
But the gay community, no, I don't. I wish I actually had more friends. I don't know. More gay friends, queer friends.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. And it is hard, right? Like where do you go? Like like where do you find, you know, other queer people? And that's real. And you're also talking about, you know, being Peruvian and queer. And so I'm curious what it means for you to simultaneously identify as both, as Peruvian and queer.
I don't think I've given that much thought. Let's see, ever. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. That's a good one. That's a good question.
That's okay.
But I don't have an answer for it. I don't know. I'd have to think on that one.
That's okay. That's okay too. You know, maybe a follow-up could be, do you feel your identities coexist in the same spaces? So if you think back to spaces you've been in, does being Peruvian and queer, you know, do you feel like they overlap or they go together in these spaces?
So, well, I'm never, I guess because of all that, the non-acceptance, I've accepted to never look for acceptance. So, because, you know, very early on in life, I've been taught that I'll never get it anyway. And I don't mean from my parents, you know, because I've gotten acceptance for my preference and whatnot, even though my mom's very judgmental. I don't know, that might be a Peruvian mom. I don't know. But I just feel like she stares at me sometimes. I'm just like, why are you staring at me? Like, it's rude. Even at dinner, I'm just like, what am I doing? So to me, I don't give it much thought when I'm going somewhere and I know I am a queer Peruvian. I don't care. You know, if I'm here, it's because I know I can be here, and whether you like me or not, I will survive after that encounter as well. And well, you know, luckily so, because some people, you know, obviously the attacks on the gay, the physical attacks on the gay community are unfortunate that hasn't quite, I mean, I was attacked one time, but luckily I had a weapon to defend myself. So I was able to avoid that, but the attack was specific in reference to how I dress and how I present. And, you know, this whole, oh, you want to be a man? I'll teach you how to be a man. It's like, dude, I haven't even talked to you. Like, what is your problem? And so, yeah, like I do what I do. I am who I am, regardless if I'm welcomed in that space or not. And I'm quick to just leave a space where I'm not anyway. So I just kind of rectify it that way. You know, I don't, you don't like me, too bad. And when I leave too. Yeah, I don't let it take me down, you know, or, you know, not to say other people's allow it to take me down, but I'm just saying my personal experience, how would you say that? I'm lucky enough to have the capacity to just confront it face forward, you know, but that is probably a struggle, and rightfully so for many, you know, because it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's just that, you know, I probably at one point it was harder. I probably even erased that from my memory and just said, you know what, screw this. You know, you want me to be strong? I'll be strong. So it's not fair though. It's not fair. It's not fair to always have to be strong. But it is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm really sitting with, you know, with all that you've shared with me, because, you know, it isn't fair, right? It isn't fair to have to be strong in all of these spaces because there is a constant threat of harm or violence, right, against queer and trans folks. And we know this, right? We know that queer and trans folks in Peru and in the US, you know, outside of Peru, face disproportionate amounts of harm and violence, you know, against them. You know, a lot of folks pay for it with their lives.
Yep.
You know, and I'm sorry to hear that you've experienced, you know, very real violence. And so, you know, I'm sitting with that, and, you know, we know this, right? We know that there's that threat always. And so what, you know, how do we as queer Peruvians, right? We know that there's violence, we know that there's harm. Many of us experience this in different ways. How do we survive it? How do we survive, you know, the harm, the violence, the pain, and how do we move? You know, how do we move after experiencing it?
I like to think it's the ancestors in me that tell me you're gonna be fucking strong. You know, those stories are not only uplifting to me, but very inspirational, you know. And for those of us that cannot do it or have been overcome by, you know, those horrible evildoers, some of us need to just stand up, you know. And I think it's also fair for some of us to have to take a break and others to fill in. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I just always say, you know what? My superpower is being Peruvian, man. I rely on it. I rely on it a lot to get me through a lot of this nonsense. And even though homophobia is very real in Peru as well, you know, it's not. I haven't experienced it to the degree I had there. So not to say that I won't once I make my move, and I hope I don't, but yeah. So you know, and sometimes it's just a matter of I was raised by, like I said, older parents, and it's just like, you know, screw them, whatever they think, you know. So that's kind of how I am. A brush it off attitude, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Nat. And you know, I think that you naming your ancestors is so powerful because personally, I can relate to that. I know that, you know, when I feel the threat of homophobia, you know, and no matter the space I'm in, I know that my ancestors are there as well.
Yeah, I'm empowered by them. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The same way that violence has been passed on through colonialism and their ancestors, well, the same way we have resistance in us. So it's important to use that energy wisely. Know when you need to recharge, but when you can, you should. You should, you know. But yeah, I mean, even, you know, when I present myself like this, it's I make it a point, you know, like even this is Chavin, the pin from Chavin, right? And yeah, I'm dressing away the white society has deemed that is a professional, and you know, this is how you have to look, and you know, to be deemed clean cut and whatever. But I'll be damned if I don't put something Peruvian on to always remind me that no matter what, you know, and I'm versatile. Are you? You know, I'm a chameleon. What can you do? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just, like I said, there is nothing our ancestors couldn't do, as evident by all the stuff that's all the culture and ruins and you know, artifacts that are in Peru and wrongfully elsewhere. If they could accomplish all those things, we have an obligation to honor them in some way.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you know, like folks won't be able to see what you're wearing, but you're looking fresh. You look.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Looking put together, looking good, you know.
Thank you.
And I think that dress, you know, is such a tool, I think, for queer folks, for folks in general. But I think that there's something to be said about the ways that queer folks style themselves, you know, that feels authentic to us. And And so I love the pin, and, thank you for sharing. So I wonder if there are any other identities that are salient to you. You've mentioned your queerness, your Peruvianness. If there are any other identities.
Those are the two that will always fundamentally be a part of who I am. I've had other roles. I don't know if I would consider them identities. At one point, I mistakenly did. But thankfully, I can't remember the lady's name, but one day it was almost like she was, I don't want to say a guardian angel because I'm not religious at all, but similar to what a guardian angel would be, like sent to me by some greater good into my life to tell me, like, this is a role, not an identity. Because when you feel something turn their back on you and you've given so much of yourself to that role, but you realize at the same time, that role wasn't ever always going to be, it wasn't going to be forever to begin with. And I guess to not be so general, I'm speaking of my career that has ended due to injury, but I was in law enforcement. And yeah, that does become an identity because it's a career, but really then you start to realize that was a role that I played. Or at least for me, that's how it is. So, no, being queer is fundamentally a part of who I am, and being Peruvian is fundamentally a part of who I am. Without those two things, I don't exist. But without that role, I exist just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that distinction. Because it's true, right? I think that there are some identities that no matter how hard we want it to, we can't erase them. They're part of us. And I would like to shift a little bit, if it's all right with you, to some other questions that mainly center, some aspects of healing and wellness, because I do work that centers queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And my background, my training has been in through Black feminist methods, has been through tenets of healing justice. So I get really curious as to how folks are centering wellness, how they view healing, how they are healing. And so I have a few questions, if that's all right with you.
Sure. These are going to be the toughest questions for me. So go ahead.
Okay, so what does wellness look like for you?
Okay. Working out, although I can't right now due to injury, but working out was a huge part of my life, all my life. Or being active. As a form of stress relief, as a form of just decompression. And it is, for me, self-care, because I'm only focused on me at that moment and what I'm doing. So wellness for me did include a lot of doing, activity. I'm from the end of the times when mental health was very taboo, but I'm still part of that time. So I've realized, I've said it to even my younger cousins, like, listen, just get past it. You can't fix it, you can't erase it, move forward. And that's not necessarily the way to do it. But it's what I was taught. So, yeah, I guess I would struggle to say like what mental health should be versus what it is for me. But for me, it really has just been staying active, being able to be active, which right now, I would say my mental health did take quite a hit with not being able to release any stress. And I have a lot of stress on my plate right now, or stressors. Talking with friends, that helps. And my rescue dogs, I love them. Just companionship, that loyalty that they provide in terms of they're always loving, they're always willing to give love and receive love. So that puts me in a good space. Although I know that right now there are a ton of ways to address wellness and mental health. I probably don't take advantage, no, not probably, I do not take advantage of all the avenues. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm aware now that they're out there.
And wellness, I'm glad that you named, the different types of wellness, because wellness doesn't just look one way, right? So, and also depending on where we are in our lives, what comes up for us, wellness is going to look differently as well. So, you mentioned that physical wellness is important to you, but currently you're not able to, because of an injury. And you also see how it's affecting your mental health, right? So all of these things are interconnected, one affects the other. And so, the best vibes, the healing energy to you so that you're able to recover from this injury, because that is so real. I'm in a similar position where I can tell if my body's going through something, it affects the other things. And so, and so,
thank you.
Yeah. And so, but there are ways, right? So you name companionship, your dogs, and that does play a part in wellness. So what about healing?
What does healing look like to me? Well, peace, just being at peace. Mm-hmm. Acceptance, not so much as okay, I accept this wrong thing that happened in my life or unfair thing that happened in my life, but accepting the fact that it did happen, and then just finding a way to come to acceptance that it was whatever it was is wrong, but also that it will not stop you from achieving your best life, whatever that may be. And it means just, I'm not going to let anything that's gone wrong in my life still stop me from possibly having the rest of my life being happy. I'm just always going to pursue positivity and happiness, regardless. The way I do that is I just put my head down and I charge through it. But that's not, probably everyone's way, but yeah, I guess that's the way I do it.
Yeah, but that's your way, right? It doesn't have to be anybody else's way. It's your way. And and that is okay too. We're each of us are unique. We're autonomous beings. We're able to figure out what feels right for us. And so I have a few more questions. What role does community have in your life?
I would say not as big as I'd actually like it to be. I'm happy that those of you that are creating spaces for a community to thrive, exist, first of all, thrive and flourish. I think that's super important. You know, I wish I would have been there even earlier for me in life, but I'm happy that it is there now. But like I said before, I don't surround myself by any one set of community, whether it be Peruvian or gay, which are the two things that, like I said before, are fundamental to who I am. I wouldn't mind, but I just don't know where to begin other than where I have, which is in social media. Yeah. So no, family though is different. Family does play a larger role than, I would say, community in my life currently.
Yeah. And social media, I'm glad that you named social media because it is such a tool, right? It's in terms of seeing how communities can be formed, how we can create spaces for our communities to thrive. I've definitely seen a shift recently in social media. I have so many more Peruvians, following me and following each other than I ever have in my life, right? I didn't even know that many Peruvians.
Right. I'm the same.
Yeah.
And we actually all reach out to one another and and comment on each other's story. I'm with you. And even that solidarity means a lot. Even though it's behind some, electronic device, but at least, there is a person at the end of that. Even that's, I guess that way I participate a lot in the community. Or I try to as much as I can. Because I try not to get too involved by social media either. It's not healthy. But yeah.
Yeah. And earlier, when we were speaking, it sounds like you do try to show up for your community, and that's really special and that's important. And I know that I personally, I feel it every single time I have interactions with other Peruvians online, other queer Peruvians, especially online. It means a lot. So what about pleasure? Does pleasure come up for you at all when you think of your intersecting, Peruvian queer identities or how you move through life?
What do you mean by pleasure?
However pleasure looks like, what's pleasurable to you?
Okay. And how does, and the question is,
does pleasure come up for you when you think of your Peruvian and queer identities or how you move through life?
Does pleasure come up? Can you, is there another way to ask that? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Totally okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So perhaps when you're thinking of, you said that your Peruvian and queer identities make up who you are, and so when you're navigating life as Nat, right, and you are this queer Peruvian person, as you navigate life, does pleasure play a role in your life?
So I'm not sure I quite understand it, but I'm gonna answer as far as I understand it. And I guess pleasure to me is, kind of equal to joy, and being both those things bring me a lot of joy, because I knew that I liked women, girls, whatever, female gender since I was a child. And I've been a Peruvian my whole life. And having identified exactly what it is, well, not exactly, but having identified the ways in my life has brought about my Peruvianness also gives me joy. Like I said, like I had mentioned earlier, even going to the restaurant to get a ceviche makes me very happy. Or listening to Peruvian music, or doing anything that's Peruvian, and clearly having the ability to live my life the way I want to live it in terms of my sexuality brings me, one, a lot of peace, and two, enjoyment. So I would equate those things kind of with pleasure, So that's what I got.
That's great. I love hearing that joy comes up for you. And I think also it's okay that the question has, thrown you off a little bit, because I think when I ask this question, a lot of folks, I think often don't know how to think of pleasure besides like a sexual experience, right? Which is okay.
That's what I was leaning towards at the beginning. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure.
Sometimes sexual experiences also are pleasurable for folks, and that's okay too, right? If that's
yeah.
But I think pleasure, when I ask this question, I hear so much in when queer Peruvians speak that their identities does bring up joy, right? It shapes how they navigate life. Even if there has been, struggles, even if there's been, moments of hardship and pain, when they speak about their identities, they share with me that it makes them feel good, right? And so I equate things at large when I think of pleasure. And I think that pleasure can, for some people, right, has a role, and pleasure is also going to look differently again, right? Like just like healing, just like wellness can also look very differently. So that was a great answer. Perfect answer.
Yay. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I was. It was weird. It was weird for me in my head at first. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm getting this question, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely, no worries at all. And so I have two more questions before we wrap.
Perfect.
One is, what do you wish for yourself?
More happiness. Because I think happiness, there's an infinite amount of it. So as much as I can absorb happiness along with positivity, more of it, and that I'm successful in finding it. So by happiness, I don't mean anything financial. To me, financial plays a very small role in actual happiness. And were it not for capitalism, it'd play no role in my eyes. But unfortunately, everything costs money, so you need it. But just general happiness, to be at peace. My peace is invaluable to me. So yeah, that's one thing. And I think a lot of it is tied to being where I feel in the safest of spaces. And although I'm a little apprehensive about my move back to Peru because of my queerness, it is the safest of places that I can think of for me in order to achieve that happiness and peace. And then I would gladly join the fight once I get there for visibility as a queer person. You know, so, but that fight is here as well. So, you know, that's why I say, if I have it here, I'm already fighting because I'm gay here. At least I can take away the fact that I don't have to fight about being Peruvian. Although sometimes I feel like, you know, you never know what happens when you get there in the sense of, you know, oh, well, you were born in the United States, so you're gringa. I'm like, come on, really? Yeah. But I let that bother me less because I'm like, yeah. As long as I'm here. You know, so, yeah, because it's like, you have no idea, you know, being born there is not everything they tell you. It's not, you know, and so yeah. I think that's just peace and happiness, as cliche as it sounds. That is all I want. Yeah.
So peace and happiness. It's not cliche, you know. I think that it's wonderful to want to wish that, you know, for ourselves. Like why wouldn't we, right? Like
yeah. I tell everyone, I think I talk to this, you know, we all deserve to be happy. And whatever that looks like for you, you know, so long as you're not infringing upon someone else's life, you know, you want to be a serial murderer, that's not okay. But so long as you're not infringing upon anyone else's right to also be happy, then you deserve to be happy. And whatever that looks like for anybody. So, yeah.
So my last question, what do you wish for queer Peruvians?
Acceptance. Acceptance, because we struggle with in Peru, you know, and I'm very aware that Peru has not recovered from the state of colonialism and the colonial mind, to the point where even those here struggle, you know, bring that mindset with them here too, you know, and embrace this whiteness and Eurocentric and American-centric stuff that it's very violent against us, against yourself. And it makes it a very, it's like an enigma. You know, like, why would you? But people do. You know, and that's just something I've seen from mostly my mom, less than my dad. My dad's always been pro-Indigenous, you know, and neither one of us embrace religion. I specifically not because of its ties to colonialism. It's not our religion. Our religion is in the earth. So, you know, there's a lot to overcome. So I wish for them acceptance, so that I think once they're accepted just as a normal, like anyone else, peace and happiness follows thereafter. Because you're allowed to do what you need to do for you without interference from another. So I wish for that for them here, abroad, and in Peru.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, for reaching out to me in the first place. You know, it really means so much. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without folks in the community that had an interest in even speaking with me and sharing a bit of their story and being so vulnerable and honest with me. I'm really, really grateful. And, you know, if there's nothing else that you would wish to share with me, you absolutely can. But if there's nothing else, you know, that wraps our interview. But yeah, I'm just sitting in gratitude for you and for the story that you shared today.
Yeah. Like I've said before, thank you, one, for the opportunity to sit here with you. Thank you for doing this study, make sure that we're represented in this type of study. We need the intellectual minds to put that out there. That's important. And I wish you much success with your studies and further beyond wherever it takes you. So yeah, thank you for representing us in a positive way too. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you so much for the the good wishes. I wish the same for you, and yeah, I every single time I wrap one of these interviews, I'm just so grateful for for the time that I've shared. But if there's nothing else, I can go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, cool.